This is Mary Jo talking today about something exciting, the Great Resignation. I'm not sure if anyone's going to join us live, so I will wait a minute or two just to see if anyone does. And if not, hopefully you're watching this on the replay and catching up and get something good out of this. I am just back from a few days away in the Wisconsin Dells in the water park capital of the country with my boys. It's so funny watching them now. We used to go to the Dells, to a couple different places when they were really little, and you kind of like have that whole follow them around, make sure they don't fall in the water, or they want to be glued to you. And my boys are now 9, 11, and 13, and it's so fun watching them want their independence and have this be a place that like we can sit kind of central to the water park, and they can go do these slides over here, these things over here together, and be little buddies, be each other's friends, and go out and do fun stuff without having to be, attached to us. So it's a weird part of like watching them grow up, but also kind of cool watching them and thinking about how I remember thinking that was super cool to like go to the pool by myself with my friends, and that's where they are right now. So it's a fun combination of fun to watch and a little sad that they're growing up. But that was my excitement for the last few days, hanging out in a water park. But we're not here to talk about water parks, right? I did want to spend some time today going over one way that I believe that, and really a simple, easy button way that you can make a big difference during the Great Resignation for your organization, that you can attract people, get them to buy into your culture, keep your superstars, keep everyone where they are, and be able to thrive during this time that is so difficult to keep people. And I actually saw a quote today I shared earlier on LinkedIn that I love, that it's the purpose of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. And I think that is something that's craved right now in the hiring process by people who are applying for jobs and job seekers, is they want opportunities to be leaders. They want growth to be, opportunities in the future to be a leader, and they want to be able to look up to good leaders and strong leaders rather than just be managed and kind of live in this little bubble within the organization. And what really started this for me was I had a conversation, 2 weeks ago now, with someone that I've done some work with, and we were talking about, are they back in person? Their office is, how staffed are their office? How much remote are they doing? And that kind of segued into just how difficult, that it is to hire right now. And this was someone in the engineering field, and talking to them a year ago, they were having the same hiring struggles before there was a cool name, the big quit, the Great Resignation. And I don't think this is simply an engineering problem. Another friend who works at a big healthcare company said that, 10 years ago, they couldn't post a job application without being inundated with applications internally before even getting a chance to have an external person come into the organization. It was really hard to get to a point where you could hire brand new people from outside the organization because there was so much desire to work there. And now they have job applications, job descriptions posted that have been sitting there for months unanswered. Or when they do get an answer, it's not someone who's qualified, or that's not someone they can actually bring in and hire because of their demands. So having these conversations and seeing the impact it's had on people that I know, I wanted to put some effort into how can I help. That's what I do. This is why I got involved in politics. I wanted to be part of making a change. This is why I started focusing more on coaching. I wanted to be a part of making a change in people's lives. And what really struck me in my conversation with the person from the engineering firm is what the requests have been when they actually do get really great people come in, and the biggest struggle they've had, and I think this is true for a lot of industries, is that 5 to 10-year person. And in engineering, that means that you have already sat and passed your professional engineering license exam, or you're about to. Um, so there's, bigger things that you can take on once you pass that. But I think a lot of people need that experienced but not super high level person in their organization, and that's a really hard role to fill right now. And what he found was that people were asking for like 30, 40,000 more dollars a year in salary than they had anticipated and what they currently paid their employees. And it's become nearly impossible to hire people at those salaries. And made me wonder, what else can you do? What what can you do to attract the brightest people out there, the best talent to your organization? What can you do to get them to commit to you, to hire them into the organization? Not just get to the interview process, but get through it and accept an offer. And what can you do to make sure that your current superstars are staying, that they want to be there and they want to continue working there for their career? It's not very common anymore to stay in one place for a very long time, and generationally that has changed. Every generation, even Gen X, that I'm part of, we don't anticipate staying in one company anymore. Personally, I if you look at my resume, it's funny, it's like every 5 years I get an itch. I want to do something new, I want to change. It's not always a brand new place that I've worked, but that was even when I worked at FEMA. That was the about 5 years is when I made the move from the regional office in Chicago to going out to DC, and working at FEMA headquarters, because for whatever reason, that's the time frame where I really want to like get into something new, get involved in something different. So I know that businesses are losing people left, right, and center. I know that it's impossible to find people, and that job seekers are aware of how in demand they are. If they are asking upfront for salaries that feel outrageous to the person that they're talking to, they know their value and they know how hard it is to hire. And plenty of the job seekers that are applying, from what I understand in talking to a few people, is that they aren't in a position where they need the new job. They're not unemployed currently. They're employed and looking for what may be out there, because it is such a in demand time. So I decided to start with research because I'm a nerd. Um, but I wanted to see, what are people looking for? What's important to different age groups, different demographics in hiring in an organization that they want to work for? And clearly, pay is also always something that's top of mind for everyone. But I think we put more weight on that than it's worth, and I think that's the one way that job seekers know how to communicate that they want really high value in their role. Um, so it's something you can go to easily. But there are ways that you can negotiate through things like benefits, that salary, right? You can say, well, we can't offer you this, but we have this and this that offset that, or it's different type of investment in you. And I think that's where I wanted to look, that I can't control what you are able to offer an employee from a salary perspective, but what value can I bring? What can I find to help my clients, to help my friends find solutions to get better people? Um, so it's interesting. I'll stick some of the things I'm going to talk about in the chat as I talk through them. But I did break it down generationally, because I think different generations, and it's well documented, well known, that different generations want different things out of their work, right? So I started with a nice article um, that I found interesting, and I will post this. So the way I stream, this is posted. I just put a link in on Facebook and YouTube. Um, I'll go back and do that in LinkedIn as well. in a few minutes. But one of the things that I found was this great article from HR Daily Advisor. And they had a great breakdown of the things that they saw different age groups looking for in their hiring practices, their hiring experiences. So, okay, got the link thing worked out. One of the things that I thought was really interesting is, sorry, battling technology. If I start with boomers, no jokes being made here on age. Even you look at the boomers, your most experienced generation, those that bring a high value because of their longevity in the industry, because of the variety of things that they've experienced and seen over their careers. Those that are in the baby boomer generation are looking for flexibility in hours, which I think would be surprising to a lot of people. But this is a generation that knows and is aware that they are hitting a point where they're looking towards retirement. And they still want to be active and involved in growing an organization and making something and building something and creating something. But they don't want to do it full time necessarily. They don't want to do the 60-hour weeks anymore. So they're looking for a little flexibility, roles and positions where they can use that experience, but not to the huge extent that they had to when they were growing up in their industry. They're looking for stability is another part of it. And that comes, the stability part is they want stability in the job. They want the corporation that they're working for to be stable, but they also want their day-to-day life to be fairly stable. They want to understand what the role is and what it brings and what their day in the life would be. They want good healthcare benefits as well. And that's something that I can't help with. But it also makes sense, their experience comes with, an age that you're really becoming more dependent on healthcare systems to support you. So those were the big things in the boomer generation. Well, he's not this generation. I will use the experience of my father in the 80s. Another time where it was the inverse, where it was really hard to get hired. And he was of the older generation at the time. I was my dad's second family. So he was born in 1931. And in the 80s, he was a little bit on the older side in the accounting world. And he had gotten an accounting degree, a 2-year degree on the GI Bill after Korea, and had been in accounting and bookkeeping most of his career after the war. And what he found was that he was being looked over for a younger generation that they could pay less to, that they could train up, but were a much easier change in their pocketbook. And the reason I bring this up is I think it's important when you're hiring to make sure that your practices, you're not just looking at millennials and Gen Z, that the young people that you want to hire, you're looking at your practices from a standpoint of, what about this generation that still wants to work, that may want to work part-time and really brings such unique experience? So I say all that just to say it's important to meet their needs along with the needs of the other generations as well. One of the other interesting things in this article is that it talks about technology, that there's a presumption that this generation doesn't necessarily use technology as well as the other generations. And be careful with that, because there's a lot of users of technology in that generation, that people have stayed current in their own practices. And there may be gaps in technology. There may be gaps in how you operate as a business and other places they've been, but they're fillable and they're coachable. So that's boomers. Moving on to my world, to Gen X, the article talked about Gen X really is looking for growth opportunities. This will be a recurring theme. They want work-life balance. I feel that. They care about the company values. What kind of corporate culture do you have? Are you out in the community doing good things? Are you serving the community in other ways? a lot of the things that we see now where there are companies are talking more about their experiences, doing something environmental or how they have worked to reduce their own emissions and become more green. What kind of perks, essentially, do the values bring of the company to the individual who's applying? Another thing Gen X talked about is they really are looking for mentoring programs and leadership opportunities. Now, for them, the mentoring is they want the opportunity to be mentored and to mentor others. They're at a place in their career where they have gained a lot of experience. They know they still have more to learn, but they want to share what they've learned with the people behind them as well. Gen X is also really interested in benefits, and what they're looking for are strong benefit packages that are flexible and unique. They want something different, they want something more, but they want also to have a really strong benefits package because they're having, they have families, they have a lot of people to look out for. They need the ability to have maybe short-term disability. They're taking care of aging parents, things like that. They have a lot of unique needs, so they really are looking for a strong benefits package. And then they want formal career path development. They want to see the path and know how they get there to what they want in their career. So moving on to millennials, I'm going to make this quick because I'm going to come back to millennials in a few minutes. What the study found was that millennials really are looking for the ability to grow. They're looking for the opportunities to be mentored. They're looking for flexibility, and they're looking for technology. This is a generation that grew up using technology from a very early age, and they see the importance and the need, and they want to leverage technology whenever possible to make their lives easier. They do that in their personal life, and they want to do it at work. So they're going to be great at also finding these opportunities to do things better. And they may not always get their voice heard, which is frustrating for millennials because they're the young kids. So I think millennials are really high in demand because of that 5 to 10 year age range that we're looking for in a lot of industries. So I'm going to come back to them and talk a little bit about some further research I did on millennials. And then moving into Gen Z, some of our newest employees. Gen Z has some similarities in what Gen X and millennials were looking for. And these are learning opportunities. They want to be able to grow. They want to be able to develop professionally. They're looking for mentorships also, and the ability to have somebody, a leader they look up to that can mentor them. They want flexibility in their work life, in their schedule, in where they work from. And like millennials, they grew up on technology. They want to leverage technology to the maximum extent possible. And then one thing that's on the Gen Z list that I found interesting that was not on the millennial list here, but comes up in other places, is they want purpose to their work. They want to feel like they're driven by their work having meaning in their lives. So I thought the study was overall really interesting. And because it was from an HR source, there's a lot of different things that went into it. So because millennials are so sought after right now, I did a little more work, and there's two other studies that I found really interesting. The first one is actually the source of the study is Fortune Magazine's Best Workplaces for Millennials study. There's 300,000 millennials responded to the survey, and then a company called Great Place to Work analyzed those surveys and kind of found 5 themes that they thought went across all of these. And I'll put the link to this one in the comments as well. But this one was interesting in that millennials in these cases, the 5 top things that kept millennials or attracted millennials to organizations. First was fair pay and personal meaning, that they are being paid what they're worth, and that there is a personal mission, something motivational about the work and the company. The second was they want inclusive benefits that go beyond parenthood. This was fascinating. I learned a new word. They had something cool. Instead of paternity, they had pause-ternity, PAWS. That there are companies out there offering leave for adopting a new pet. When you come home with a puppy, got some things to deal with. And some places are becoming so broad and wider in their interpretation of their benefits and how they're extended to their employees for leave, that this is something that's really attracting millennials because they're saying, I don't have kids yet, but I just got a new dog. Can I have some time off for that? And anyone who's laughing at that has never had a puppy pee all over their house. So, but this was a really interesting one. The inclusive benefits that go beyond parenthood didn't just apply to also that type of leave. It was very broad. They want something unique and innovative. They want to say that this company understands who I am, and they're providing benefits that can be tailored to my needs. The third one was about gender equity, which made me happy. But millennials are more sensitive to gender equity, males and females, and making sure that at all levels there's gender equity. So they're going to be looking to see, what do you do around gender in the workplace? Are you hiring our men and women equally? Is leadership all men? Is leadership all women? They are more sensitive and attuned to those things, and they want companies that care about that as well. One of the things that they phrased, the next one is called, that they talk about, is flexibility. And flexibility post-pandemic is what they say. But I've also been learning that this flexibility to work from home, to work remotely, to work in other spaces, goes way beyond just the pandemic. That the pandemic forced us into a space where we made this okay. But this has been a need and a want for a long time, and something that I think millennials have really been able to thrive because of their ability to use technology and adapt quickly to technology, that for them, there's very little difference in how they interact and engage right now. And the fifth one in this study was safe spaces where they can be involved. Millennials really want an atmosphere that's welcoming. They want an atmosphere that's inclusive. They want to make sure that they can ask questions and that they can offer ideas and suggestions and be heard. They want some sort of shared participation, ownership in the business, not little ownership necessarily, but that feeling that what I'm doing contributes to the larger mission. And a big part of this also was around diversity, equity, and inclusion also. And one of the things that I think in corporate life we forget is that if we are not ourselves, from a group that's been historically disadvantaged in some way and underrepresented or underserved, then you kind of forget what it means to be a good ally. And I was participating in a group a few years ago, and it was focused on the LGBTQ community. And they asked all of the elected leaders to stand up and say, what are you taking away from this? And my big takeaway was something that a friend of mine said on the panel, was that being a good ally doesn't mean that you post some pleasant stuff during June, during Pride Month. Being a good ally means that you live it every day, and that after, when you get into July, what are you still doing? What are you still talking about? Are we still part of the message? Are we still part of the legislation? And we tend to post a lot. I'm coming to you right on LinkedIn and Facebook, and all of us in the corporate world were posting messages about Black History Month and Women's History Month, and continue to celebrate your Black leaders and your women leaders after those months. That is what millennials are looking for, that you're really a good ally if you are not yourself part of a diverse community. So real quick, I wanted to tell a story about the flexibility piece of that came out here, because I found it so interesting, and something, because of my own perspectives and experiences, I'd never thought of. I was attending a training last week through a civic leadership academy, and the topic really was about diversity and inclusion. And we talked about going back to the work, going back to the office, and that part of it, and what that means in this space. And one of the women said, I think that it's hard for a lot of people of color to go back to their offices because that's a place of trauma for some of them. And it blew my mind. that while a lot of us talked about during the pandemic and being home and kind of restricted, that our mental health suffered because um, we were not with people, we were not engaged in, have as many personal relationships as we normally would. But there are segments of our communities, especially people of color, who did some healing during that time because there was no um, constantly feeling different, microaggressions, things like that being targeted at them. And it was white girl here didn't ever consider that. And it, like I said, blew my mind. But these are the types of things that get noticed and get known by millennials. And they look for in flexibility, that the flexibility isn't just, I like being working from home. There is a different calm for some people that comes with working remotely, that the pressures that are alleviated from them. And I think we need to collectively put a lot more stock into what working remotely or at least hybrid working means and how we help recognize why people want to work remotely and work flexibly, and make sure that, if we have them in the office even part-time, that we are addressing those issues or those problems for them while they're back in. So that was kind of where I saw a lot of these kind of tying together around gender equity, safe spaces, and flexibility. Have a lot of like pieces that connect. So that was a lot. There's also a great report that Gallup did on millennials and what motivates them. And I'm kind of a dork for Gallup as well. I'll put the link in the comments on this one. But it's been really interesting to read this, and you'll see that it's common. The Gallup report showed that millennials really want purpose over paycheck. They're going to ask for the number, but they're going to want to know that there's purpose behind it first. They want skill development. They want you to invest in them. They want to grow as people and as members of your industry. They want a leader, not a boss. They want to get feedback, and they're looking for work-life cohesion. Never heard it phrased like that, but I liked it. And this was another like intensive study. That's what Gallup does, right? And then coming up with all of these things. So there were common themes in the different studies, different surveys of millennials. So I think, those kind of lended themselves to each other. You kind of saw that, yeah, this seems consistent. There's a consistent message for millennials. And across all generations, I think there was 4 themes I came away with in doing my research. And there was one theme around learning and growth, that everybody wants to be able to develop personal skills. They want to develop their technical skills. They want to develop as a member of your community, and using community as your whole corporate organization. They're not getting it, they're out. So this isn't just teaching in engineering, teaching someone how to use a HEC-RAS model. This is teaching someone more about leadership skills, soft skills, customer service skills, things that they need, marketing, sales. Someday you're going to get to that point where you're going to have to do some marketing for yourself if you want to run projects, right? There's all these soft skills that we don't spend a lot of time developing. Another theme was finding meaning in your work. And that was across the board from boomers to Gen Z. And they didn't use those words consistently, but what was said about it meant the same thing, where boomers may be looking for opportunities to use your experiences, even while they're like kind of sunsetting their careers. They want to still be able to contribute and grow a company. They want to be able to have an impact on the companies they work for. And on the millennial and Gen Z side, what they talk about is they want to have purpose and see the results and see how they contribute and make sure that they're making a difference, not just in the company, but in the world. But there's got to be meaning to it for everybody. Another theme was flexibility. And what was so interesting is that we know that younger generations want this kind of flexibility. I've been asking for this, but it's really something that's universal. And flexibility appears in different ways, but it's something that people across the board wanted. And then benefits. People want benefits that reach them, that are meaningful to them, that are going to set you apart and help the employee. I think we get into a headspace sometimes with benefits of just checking boxes, right? Well, you got healthcare, you got, this and this and this and this, and okay, we're good. But it's much more to that to people that you're hiring. So, what do you do about this, right? If what's really across the board important is learning and personal growth, meaning in their work, flexibility, and benefits, what do you do about that? So, the flexibility part, those are some policies and procedures, right? You have to decide and be open to different styles of work. That is something that takes a lot of conversation in some companies. Some are totally open to it, no problem. If your company's not, there are some big conversations that need to be had. So it probably feels like you don't have a lot of options to keep or attract great people, and that can feel really defeating, right? One option is always to start offering those big salaries. And I literally just had a phone call with someone who mentioned this, that, we have to pay people so much now. And there's an equity issue there, that if you're paying, that have experienced this, if you're paying the newer people much more than the people who've been there a while doing the same job, that gets out. It always does. Don't think people don't talk about money. Now you've got to make it right, or risk losing the people who've been there because they feel like they're being treated unfairly. Larger salaries hurt your rate structures, things you already have negotiated and contracts you have in place that make it harder to make a profit. And so now your profit is limited by having to offer larger salaries. And you may even have to be in a position where you are pushing to bill somebody out at a higher level than you would like to, which then in turn also means you can spend less time on the project because now you're going to hit your contract cap sooner. So offering larger salaries is not something that I don't think anyone finds attractive. So if you're not going to be able to offer significantly larger salaries, you have to offset that in some way. So you can spend some time, if you don't have one already, developing one or greatly enhancing a training program. A lot of companies have like a SharePoint and a knowledge academy and a training sessions and different things and lunch and learns. If it's not different than what your competitors offer, if it's just every month we have lunch and learn, and then we have this knowledge academy, which is really just a SharePoint site where we dump a bunch of stuff, then you're no different, and it's not going to differentiate you. If you need to greatly enhance this to make it unique, there's a significant investment that's going to come with that in technology and the design of it and all the people involved in it. And it's a long-term investment. It's not something you get results on and you can start talking about today. This is something that's going to take a year to develop, right? So it's not going to necessarily differentiate you unless you make it really unique and special, which is going to take time. You can pay more into benefits. And this is an area that I think is good, that you should do. I have no control over this myself. So, but you can pay more into healthcare. You can offer greater PTO and flexibility in the PTO that's offered. The one drawback here is for really large companies, you pay more into benefits by a small percentage across the entire company. That's a huge dollar amount. So it can be really difficult to manage and to do that. And it takes planning. You can't just flip that switch today, right? So while it's a great idea, it's hard to implement quickly, and it's going to take time. So now what? And this is where I get to start talking about how awesome I am. So, but really, I wanted to find a way that I could help, that I could be a part of this for people. And what I saw is that, what if there was a way? This is what I asked myself. What if there was a way to invest in your team, to grow new leaders, to offer innovative benefit packages, to create some flexibility, to lay out a path for everybody in one small investment. And I think absolutely you can do that. I think you can contribute to the growth of your employees. You can help them find meaning. You can facilitate groups around diversity inclusion, create a women's group, right? Support your current leaders, help them meet their team's needs who may be generationally different, and they need to understand and learn these same things to effectively manage their teams and lead their teams and be the leaders that the people that you're hiring want and need. So here's what I came up with. I think a lot of companies need an on-call leadership coach. You don't have the resources probably to hire one full-time unless you have come from a really large organization. And I get actually notifications on LinkedIn all the time that, some ginormous company, Microsoft, is looking for leadership coaches, which is nice. But we're not all the size of Microsoft. And it'd be really hard to keep a coach fully booked, full-time, and effectively used. And you're not going to get the return on investment in a coach's salary, plus benefits, plus everything, if you hire someone, unless you can really keep them fully engaged. So hiring someone for mid-sized companies is going to be a real struggle. Or for very matrix companies where this arm doesn't know what this arm is doing, right? On-call coaches means that you pay for what you need. You're not investing in technology. You're not investing in additional overhead and benefits. You're not filling a person's time. When you need someone to be coached, you say, we have a new hire. I'd like them to have a few sessions. You pay for those few sessions. That's it. And that person, that coach, is there for you when you need them. One of the best things I think about this is it clearly shows the people in your organization now, shows your team that you are interested in their personal growth, that you are willing to invest in them, and that you really want them to succeed here in your organization, that you're willing to go that extra step of investment in them to keep them, that you find them so valuable that you want them there. I had a boss at FEMA that used to say, everybody is replaceable. And I just had a friend of mine repeat that to me who still works at FEMA. And I was like, no, no, bodies are replaceable. You can fill a body with another body. That's fine. But what you bring to an organization and the disruption that is caused when you lose key people and the ability to try and hire someone with this who was the same set of skills, the same level of rock star that person who left was, isn't feasible in this market. You can't rely on just replacing people because people are replaceable. I hated that motto. I will be honest. It drove me nuts because it shows that you don't actually value the people that work for you. You're just filling a role. You're not a person. So when you show that you're interested, when you show that their growth is part of your corporate growth, that they have a meaning to you as an employer, it goes really far with keeping people in place. The nice thing also about having a coach who is on call rather than part of your organization is there's an independence from management and an independence from the company that allows people to be more open and honest. And this is something that I learned when I actually went through an academy program for coaching that does something similar. They work with companies, really large companies, to provide coaching to their executives. And what I think is really interesting is that you want people to be open up and really talk through a lot of things. And their not motto, their structure was that it was like Fight Club. What you told me as a coach does not go back to your company. This is not a tool for them to use to judge you. This is a tool for you to use to grow. And you're saying stuff in a safe space. Safe space was important to millennials. And you're just getting the support and help you need to achieve more without it being someone tattling on you or someone letting it slip even accidentally to someone who doesn't need to know what you talk about in a coaching session. So that independence from the company is really useful too. You can also, with an on-call coach, do a lot more than just set up coaching sessions. I think you could offer it as a benefit to any new employee that all new employees get 3 to 6 coaching sessions, whatever you decide, to say, hey, we need this person at this level is coming in and joining us. We'd like them to have 3 sessions to figure out where they want to go, and really help them plan their own path. This isn't if that's then that like diagram that you get in a lot of development programs inside of corporate. You want people to say, what do I see? Where do I want to be? How do I want to behave in this organization? And how do I get to where I want to go? That's done through coaching. You can also, with your current leaders and your emerging leaders, the people that you see with great skill, great talent, great personal skills that you want to continue their growth path because you think they're going to be a leader in the organization, you can build your bench through coaching as well. You can have your current leaders coached on their next steps. You can have your emerging leaders coached on where they're going as well. So that keeps people in, and the benefits piece attracts them in. But beyond the one-on-one coaching, you can also leverage the skills of an on-call coach to do a group program. Something like I've talked a lot about my program, the Inspirational Leader Accelerator, and that is really a group coaching program focused on women to develop their skills as leaders and become inspirational rather than, and transform to inspirational leaders rather than whatever, like skill set they're currently using to kind of hold it all together. What greater diversity, equity, inclusion than to bring in someone from the outside to start up and facilitate a group, to get them launched and then turn it over to someone who wants to lead it from the inside. Leading it from the inside for a long-term program is really important. It's something I think that people want to have ownership of. Launching these programs is extremely difficult if you do not have somebody putting in a significant amount of effort into it that takes away from their work and in turn like makes them less productive. So unless you're willing to sacrifice that for someone to step in and take that leadership role, you need someone who's going to help you launch it, help it get going. And you can do that through a group coaching program to start with. Once they understand kind of the model and can leverage it themselves, they can each step in and facilitate different weeks. And this goes for all aspects of inclusion and diversity. If you have a women's group, like one of the power companies locally here have, I think it's like 40 different diversity groups, but they're huge, so they have the people that would fill groups. They have a women's group. They have a group for Hispanic workers. They have a group for the whole Black community inside their company, but they also have like a Black women's leadership group. They have, for different levels too, like executives that are people of color, because there's not a lot of them, right? So they're trying to give them community, give them space, and allow them to learn more and grow so that that community becomes more powerful within their corporate structure. So you can leverage a coach to get these kicked off and get going. And the other thing leadership coaches have skills on are training, right? We do a lot of wouldn't call it training, but educating during our sessions when the need arises. And I spent a lot of my life training, so many presentations. But you can bring in that on-call coach to fill little niches that you feel you need. It can be facilitating, some planning sessions. Coaches are very much by nature facilitators as well. You can bring someone in to help you with team building. So if you're having a struggle in one part of the organization or one group, or maybe like your whole leadership teams needs to come together. Me personally, I do work with the 5 behaviors for building cohesive teams, as well as I'm an authorized partner for DISC. So you can do workshops wherever, gets the DISC assessment. We talk through what that means And the cool thing with this now is that you have permanent access to your results and anyone in your organizations if we set it up like that. So you can always look and be like, oh, that person's style is a C and I'm a D and I'm like this wild, loud person compared to they are very internal processing. So the way I communicate with them is different than the way I would communicate with someone like me who's a D, who's more extroverted, right? So it's helping people gain those soft skills and facilitate groups coming together. All of these things can be accomplished through a leadership coach. If you have an on-call leadership coach, you can tag them for the pieces that you need, nothing more, nothing less. But you can ingrain this in your organization. You can codify it as part of your benefits package and talk about it with prospects. Communicate it to your leaders, to your teams, and say, this is something we offer. If you want to take advantage of this, let us know. And the difference you can see in morale and productivity should be dramatic. So right now you have staff that are leaving, you have good talent that's hard to find, and landing that talent and getting them hired is a struggle. Virtual work, hybrid work, still the norm and probably not going away in most cases. And we're all still kind of struggling and navigating our way through that. And that flexibility, as we've heard, is super important. The one thing I haven't mentioned yet that I think is critical, and anyone who's stuck with me this long, the cycle that this creates is vicious. It is a downward spiral of pain. It is, and I see people on LinkedIn, it's a lot of my connections who are doing this right now. They are living this right now. They aren't leaving. They aren't going anywhere. They may really love their company. They may love what they do, but they are stressed because they are understaffed. Their teams are understaffed. Their surrounding colleagues are understaffed, and they are living with the strain day to day. They are not only stretched so thin because they're doing the work of multiple people, but they also now are trying to help recruit. And I see people I see you all on LinkedIn resharing the posts of the hiring that your company is doing, and it's not necessarily part of their normal job. So let's add one more thing onto their plate while they're already stretched thin, and it's just stressful, and it's not demoralizing necessarily, but it will be in some cases. But it's this spiral, and it continues, and you're going to have people who you never thought would leave under the strain because they're now also looking for those same things we talked about. And now you have less people and you have more strain, and it's just going to keep going. So imagine if you could offer ongoing growth and support to your employees as a benefit, and to your new hires as a benefit that would attract them and make them want to be part of your team. What if you could give your staff a clear pathway for their success within your organization? What if you could put a real focus as a real ally on diversity and inclusion rather than just talking about it, posting about it, or making those posts during Black History and Women's History Months? What if you could make workloads then, because you're successful at that, manageable and meaningful? What if you could do that all without huge investment and without cutting into your profit margins? Wouldn't your morale shift dramatically? Wouldn't your team work more productively? Wouldn't your revenue increase because you have more people who are billing, you have more products being created, and your profits are also increasing because you're not having to invest at a ridiculously high rate? You're making smart investments that don't break the bank to make this happen. So I want to help you with this. I know it's marketing. I know I'm trying to sell you something, and that probably feels icky. It feels icky to me. I won't lie, but I want to help with this. And I think this is one way that I can help the people I know, the companies I know, succeed and get through this. So if you're interested in learning how I can benefit your company, how I can help create the atmosphere that attracts new great hires and keeps the people you have, I want you to schedule a call with me. It's super simple. Click a link. I'm going to put the link in. Click this link. It'll take you into my calendar. All you got to do is find a space that works for you on my calendar. Spend 30 minutes talking about what you need, and I'll see if I can help. I really want to help. I really, this is why I do what I do. I want to find solutions. I want to help companies. I want to help my friends. So give me a call. Take a great week this week. I hope everything goes great for y'all, and I will talk to y'all later.